Morning, Jess.
Good morning.
How's it going?
How are you, Van?
Doing good. I don't know why anyone would want to hear from me. You guys already hear from me so much, but I guess we're going to do today's call, which I'm excited about.
Yes, we are. So good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. We'll start off with an announcement first for going forward for these all leader calls. They're going to be bi-weekly. And then on the opposite weeks, we're going to have campaign specific leaders calls with your campaign. So that's our announcement. And as Van just said, every week he's been the host of these amazing leaders calls and helps us learn a little bit about each great speaker that we've had. So this week, we're going to switch things up and learn about him. So to start off, Van, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you started in the business, and where you are now?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Very excited about the changes we're making and how we're going to do the leaders calls moving forward. I think that's going to be great for each campaign to get the leaders of your campaign to impact you on specific leadership stuff. So really excited. And then every other week, like Jess said, we're going to get impacted by owners and specific people that are doing great across our whole business. So very excited about that. About my background, some of you guys have heard my story before, but I'm from Napa Valley, Northern California. Before the business, coming into this, I was working in restaurants and I was studying graphic design. My kind of thing was I was never a great student in school. School was never my thing. I figured out how to get a 3.0 or a 3.2. So I was always able to get by, but I was never a great student. I never saw the value of trying to get straight A's and do the extra credit and stay after class. And so as I was going through school, I really developed this bad habit for school, which was I wanted to copy everybody that was smart. So I didn't like doing homework. I didn't like studying. I would rather play basketball or play Mario Kart or play with my friends. And so I developed this habit of always trying to find the smartest kid in the class and, make friends with them, buy them pizza for lunch, and then they would give me their homework. So as I went through school, because neither of my parents went to college, so they didn't educate me on the plan after high school. And they just said, you'll be fine, you'll figure it out. But eventually, when it came to go to college, I didn't have a plan. So I went to a junior college for 2 years, then I transferred to a graphic design school. And I thought that I was going to do graphic design because throughout my life, people told me I was good at drawing. So I thought, okay, that's what I should do. And I didn't like that either. No coincidence, more studying, more school, I didn't like it. So as I was finishing up my degree, I ran out of money to pay for college. My parents were in the middle of going through a divorce, and it was during the recession because finances for them had really, really gone south. My dad was in construction. His business completely stopped. My mom was a financial advisor. If you do research about the recession, it was a bad time for anything involving money. And so my parents who, we started off kind of middle class and they had made some money and then we got a nicer house. All that stuff went backwards. They didn't save their money very well. So eventually all the things they bought, they had to sell. My dad bought a little boat, had to sell it. He bought an old school Willys, had to sell it. My mom, all the nice things they had to get rid of. And eventually it caused them to split up and sell their house. And this was all right as I was going through college, and my student loans, which were 60 grand, those ran out. My grants that I had, those ran out. So I was $5,000 short of finishing my graphic design degree, which is 17 units. So this was back in 2011, and I picked up 3 jobs. So I was bartending at 2 jobs. I was working, doing events. I think I was handing out NOS energy drinks at some Coca-Cola event. So, doing whatever it took to save money to try to finish school in the fall. And that's when one night I was bartending, and some of you guys know Alon Brener. He's my promoting owner. He walks in, and he was the last customer of the night, and he was wearing a suit. And at that point, I was really open-minded. I didn't really care about how I wanted to be successful. I just knew that I didn't want to be in the position my parents were in, where a lack of finances caused them to fight every day, and it caused a lot of heartache. So, and then I have a younger brother who also wasn't great in school. He does construction. So it was kind of like that moment for me where I realized a lot was on my shoulders, and I didn't want my parents to struggle as they got older. So I got into this mode of, I need to become successful. I was kind of hanging out, just going through life, paycheck to paycheck. And then, so my mind was kind of open, and that's when I met Alon. He came into the bar, only customer sitting at the bar when I was working at PF Chang's. And over the course of that meal, we talked, and he told me his background. And then a week later, I went into his office, and he told me about this business. And so I never applied, didn't create a resume, didn't even know this existed. And through that conversation at the bar that night, I ended up starting with him, quit my other jobs. And I said, hey, I'll give this a shot. I got the summer. This was back in April 2011. I got the summer. I'm just going to see what happens with this. And thank God I met him, because that decision changed the course of my life and many other people's as well. So over the course of time, I got into ownership in 2013. And I've had a decent run, and now I oversee about 20 offices, mostly on the West Coast, but now we have some AT&T offices across the country, have some guys in Assurance Wireless. And my goal now is to really get AT&T to over 1,000 apps, within the next 6 months, continue to groom and develop the next generation of superstars, and develop more, regionals and VPs underneath me to help drive these programs into the future, and just continue to learn from other examples in the business, people that are new coming in, doing a great job, and just been very, very fortunate to found this business, because so many people, they're looking for a way to be successful, and they kind of go from job to job or career to career. And this business is really hard. It tested me like crazy, but it was the best thing that could ever happen to me. So I'm super grateful, appreciative, and I just get to show up and work with people every day, which I love, and put myself and my family in a good position. My mom, she's on my payroll. She doesn't do much. I'm going to start asking her to do more this coming year, step it up a little bit. But it's a really great situation, and I have a lot of work to do, but I'm very fortunate and blessed and thankful to be in this spot.
That's awesome. I think that's a common with, a lot of people are, they push to do things for their parents, right? So my mom's on my payroll too, I always say that she's my longest and most tenured employee, and she's never actually worked for me. So I don't push her to work, but she does watch my kids, so that's technically working.
That's enough.
But what did Alon say to you when he came to the bar and you were bartending that got you to, go into his office and kind of open your mind to this whole new world of business?
Well, first I ignored him because I was pissed off. He came in, he was a lot, like literally we were about to close. And so, I don't know if you guys ever seen the movie, The Butterfly Effect, but like if he shows up 2 minutes later, the doors are locked, he doesn't come in there, he doesn't talk to me, I don't show up, how it works. And for the first 10 minutes, I wasn't even wanting to talk to him. I was just like pretending to wipe down the other end of the bar. And, if you know Alon, he just talks. And so he started talking about basketball, and I'm like, I like basketball, God damn it. All right. So we started talking, and, his confidence and his demeanor, his indifference, he just kind of, he was selling himself, but in a very indifferent way. And I grew up in a small town, so I didn't really know anybody that was like super successful. And, hearing he's from another country, and, he was in the Israeli military, and it was like, if you grow up in a small town and you know everybody, you're not exposed to different world experiences. And I hadn't been to a ton of countries at that point. So I was very infatuated with like his worldly experience and his sort of wisdom through the things he had gone through. And he moved to this country when he was 22 and had to go through the trials and tribulations of not having a citizenship. And so just a lot of stuff that I found that could be helpful and educational for me. And to me, the most motivating factor for me to want to start doing this was mentorship. Like my dad, he's great. He just does construction. He wasn't a business mentor to me. And my mom, she's a financial advisor. She's really good at what she does. She's in sales, but she just wants me to be happy. She grew up super poor in Mississippi and she likes having money and spending it because she never had it as a kid. So she's not necessarily a business mentor to me either, even though I love her like crazy. So I was really just trying to find someone to mentor me. And I really wasn't picky. I just wanted to do something that I feel like I could get ahead quickly, because bartending is a lot cooler than going in the field. But it's only cool for X amount of time, right? And just how the field, even though the field's not so cool in the beginning, eventually it becomes pretty cool what you can get to. So that was the initial conversation, his confidence, his experience, his story, and that led me to want to learn more about his business.
That's cool. And then when you went in, and you found out, you'd be going door to door, business to business, were you open to it because of how attracted you were to Alon, or were you like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Well, I tell the story, but like the way Alon interviewed me, it was very different than you think an interview would go. He just literally just told me all the negatives, like for like 45 minutes. It was like only negatives. I was like, what the hell? He's like, this is the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's commission. It's 6 days a week. He always exaggerated, like 80 hours a week. I was like 90 hours a week. I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, he kept saying most people don't have the work ethic to be successful. And like the best.
Dan, you keep touching something that's like ruining your microphone.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think I've done that before. So he was basically saying to me that only the best of the best make it. And he kept saying only the elite. And, I played sports growing up, basketball and baseball and football. And so he kept trying to it was almost like he knew to challenge me as opposed to make this sound super sexy. And he kept referring that, most people in America don't have real work ethic. It was just like, okay. And he kept saying only the best of the best. And I'm competitive. So I just as soon as he said it, and then I looked around his office and he had a beautiful office. It was overseeing like the whole Bay Area. He had pictures of people in suits. I didn't own a suit. I showed up to the interview wearing my PF Chang's ninja outfit and it smelled like chili oil. Like I was not, I didn't own any suits. I really didn't. And so barely owned any collared shirts. And so even though he was telling me all the negatives, he was really doing it in a way where I was curious, because anything that's worth it in life is really hard. And I knew that playing sports, like making the team was worth it, but it was hard. So if it's easy, it's usually not worth it. So my brain was calculating it and I was super skeptical. Like I asked a lot of questions about, commission, could I do it? I've never done it before. And, the hours, because I was, basically a kid. I wanted to hang out with my buddies and go to bars and stuff. And he was just explaining to me how that's a very short-term thing and he said something to me. He's like, cause I said, hey, this is a lot of hours. I like my social life. What do I, how do I do both? He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I like to go bar hopping with my friends. He looked at me like I had 3 heads. He's like, where do you want to be in a year? Would you want to continue to go bar hopping with your friends, or would you rather be island hopping? And I'm like, God damn it. I was like, well, that's better. And he said, he's like, yeah, how many of your friends right now could go on a vacation for 2 weeks? And I'm like, none. He's like, why not? I'm like, well, because they don't have the money and they don't have freedom. He's like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, it just depends on what your goals are. So Alon was very good at painting the picture of sacrifice and hard work, but also understanding there's a life that you can get to through that. And that just became boom. I didn't want anything else. I didn't care about the temporary stuff that people would get caught up in and the peer pressure. So that kind of turned me I was so focused on the bigger picture from the very beginning that the field became just something I had to get good at and something I wanted to do because I was so excited about getting to his level and then hopefully becoming an equal to him and being a business partner and learning more about the bigger opportunity.
That's awesome. I love that sacrifice and hard work and the life you can get to through that. Yep. So that it sounds like he is great at painting the picture and packaging the reality of things for sure. So today, guys, is not a typical interview. I'm not gonna keep asking questions to Van about his life, which I am curious about. So maybe another time we could do that. Instead, we're going to interview him on more of his outlook and his mentality on, business and the opportunity, in general, the field sales, really just the outlook on it. First, the reason why we're doing it is number one, for your own clarity, because when you see things clearer, when you understand, business and what you're actually doing a little bit better, you have the ability to focus more. And when you have that focus, that's what allows you to take massive action, towards your goals. And the second reason why we decided to, go over this type of opportunity call is so you guys as leaders get better at packaging, and promoting the business. You heard Van just say it, Alon, his promoting owners, his confidence, right? And his ability to, express and communicate, even all the negatives, still attracted Van, right? So your ability to, paint a picture and your ability to explain the training program and understand business and why sales makes the world go round and all of that is only going to make you a better recruiter. So it'll increase your hiring retention and it'll make you a better retainer, right? Because you'll be able to, again, communicate effectively why we're doing what we're doing, help reps with their parents and, the whole 9 yards. So we only see the value in this for you guys. So we'll start off with the first question for Van, which is a very simple one. And it's, why do we have a training program and why does it work?
Yeah. Well, I obviously I didn't start this business. It was started way before my time. And you guys have all heard Larry speak and talked about the journey of starting in Canada and how they've been into so many countries. But what attracted me when I first came in was this model that we only promote from within. And this isn't a franchise you can buy into. And this isn't something where, we're going to hire outside managers to fill locations. The business has always been about, you pay your dues. And when you come in, and no matter what your background is, no matter who you are, everybody starts at the same place. And you have to work your way up. And that was probably for me the most attractive thing when I started, was the idea and the concept that it was on me. And it wasn't about me knowing someone or being on someone's good side or having to wait for 15, 20 years to finally get that promotion. If I outworked people, if I out-attituded people, if I out-student mentality people, that would be my ticket. So the reason why the training program exists, and me and Jess were talking about this yesterday, it's in place because we need managers, right? That's the only way we can grow and feed our client. The clients we have, they want us to grow really, really, really fast. But we're not necessarily like microwaving people. We're, as you guys have heard in different things, it's like a crock pot where it takes time to develop someone and groom them and develop skills. So when I started, I was really not comfortable with sales, very uncomfortable with public speaking, did not know how to interview people, had no experience training someone, did not know how to have conversations and manage teams. But through this training program, within 7.5, 8 months after I started, I was managing a team of 15 to 20 people. And so the reason why we have these levels and these different stages is because this is really like the boot camp that trains people to have the confidence and the skill set to be able to be successful in a management position. So if you kind of look at the levels, right? First part is entry level. This is where someone has to gain confidence just selling and representing a client and really managing yourself without supervision. We have a lot of people that come in and they interview really well, but at the end of the day, they can't motivate themselves without constant supervision. So the first kind of 4 to 6 weeks for anybody that joins the business, of course, it's up to us as managers to provide great training and give them all the product knowledge and all the impact sessions we can give them. But at the end of the day, if someone can't motivate themselves without supervision, it is really, really difficult for them to be successful in our business. And if you guys think about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur or a successful manager, it's up to you. You have to be able to be a self-starter. You got to be the star of the show and start the engine and keep the fire going when other people might not be as excited. You have to be the one, right? So the first stage of our business is really that initial test is, can this person, when we give them the tools, can they go out there and make it happen? And, there's many people who look great. Their resume is fancy. They say all the right things in the interview, and you guys have all experienced it. And then you put them out there and they can't do it. It's like, it's kind of like someone at the gym. They need a personal trainer. Otherwise, they're never going to do the workouts. And so that's kind of the first phase of we get to see if someone can manage themselves. And then obviously, when someone gets past the sales part and they work hard and they really learn from others, the next stage is our leadership phase, which is really the most important part of the training program. We've talked about this many times. Assistant management, a lot of people get excited about that part because it's a raise, it's the next step. But that part of it, we could teach you guys in 4 or 5 weeks. Many of you would be able to learn what assistant management is and what they do, and it wouldn't necessarily be the greatest challenge, and it wouldn't develop the most skills. The most skills that all of you guys learned, and Jess would agree, we became who we are today during our time in leadership in the field. That's where, we ate the most, that's where we had our biggest struggles. That's where we had the toughest situations to go through. That's where we thought about quitting the most because we doubted ourselves. That's where we went through the struggles of learning how to adapt to people. I remember so many times how afraid I was to have critical conversations. So when one of my guys would show up late, and I'd be like, oh my God, this guy is so sharp, but he's late. What do I do? Right? Well, that's where this process and it has to happen and where the skills are developed. So when we promote people into management, we're giving the client someone who's tried and tested, right? We're giving the client someone that has gotten a stamp. They've gotten the badge that they can manage 10, 15, 20 people and be effective, because really you can't get promoted unless you become good at managing people. Some people do, and maybe it was really more the person on their team, and you can see those people struggle after that person's no longer with them. But for the most part, leadership is really where we develop the future superstars of our business. And it's where we really get to learn what someone's made of, right? Because a lot of people can get into leadership doing sales, but then what you're judged on and what determines your success is how good you are at recruiting and training and developing other people, how good you are at duplicating yourself, because at the end of the day, that's the only way to get rich in our business, is to be a great duplicator, is to be a great trainer, a great coach, and a great mentor to other people, which I believe truly is a skill. It is not something that you either are great at naturally or not. And so, and one of the things that Alon said to me really clicked. He said, this is a two-way street. He's like, I need you the same way you need me. And when he said that, it really made me think like, whoa, he needs me to be good at this. So he is incentivized to help me. And so that changed my whole mindset from coming in and looking at the office and looking at my boss as a boss and think, well, I just don't want to make him upset, to coming in saying, I need to use this person as a resource. I need to come in and get coaching and get advice every day, because the better I get, the better the office gets. And so that's really why we have that phase where we give you guys interviews, we give you guys people to train, we give you guys a chance to do public speaking. And a lot of it's really scary because you've never done it before. But our business is okay with you messing up, as long as you learn from it and as long as you grow from it. And that is so rare, right? In the business world, where companies will within 3 weeks give you people to interview on behalf of the company. Many companies, they don't let you do that for years, letting you train people on behalf of the company, letting you run impact sessions in front of the room on behalf of the company. That really was exciting. And for anyone that's understanding why, the leadership phase is really where we groom and develop people to have the skill set and the confidence to be able to go into the next phases of our business. And then the assistant management phase, like I said, is really learning the back end of the business, driving the office from the office. Dan, who just got promoted in my office here, the last week and a half now, he's been in the office, he's doing recruiting, he's breaking down the admin's days, he's understanding the financial side and the budgeting of the ads and all that stuff. And so when you look at what it takes to run a business, you've got to be able to do everything. You got to know every single position. And the training program requires you to not only do front of the house, do back of the house, and then oversee it all, and then know how to fix problems and drive things ahead when things aren't going right. So we have it in place. I would say it works pretty well. Doesn't make it easy, but it is definitely something that is exciting for anyone that is willing to put in the work and willing to go through the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations of building a team, because it is not easy and you will get tested. But it's important to realize that everybody's gone through it. You're not the only one. And if you use people who have done it as people to network with, and you get coaching from them, and you really apply it, there's no reason why you can't improve. So that's kind of the gist of why we have it. And then I don't know if the next question, Jess, maybe about why we have the offices, like the next part. why we promote people out
Well,
specifically?
yeah, so that'll be the second question. So that's why we have it and why does it work? And I couldn't agree more with, everything that you said. I love that. I was networking this weekend on recruiting, or this past weekend, and I spoke to an owner named Claire in Dallas. She's awesome. Shout out to Claire. But something she says in her interview, which I love and goes hand in hand with this, is, when she's explaining the training program, she says, obviously we're not going to hire a manager from the outside. That's a surefire way to make your business fail, right? And that couldn't be more true, right? The amount of people we interview that leave jobs because their boss sucks, right? Because their boss never did their job. That's why a boss sucks, because they were never in your position. They don't respect it. They don't know it enough to coach you on it, and that's what makes businesses fail, right? So the fact that we only promote from within, I think is absolutely genius, and I respect it at every level. I work with Al Basada, who's one of Larry's partners, right? And he's been in the game forever. He retired, he came back like for fun. And I get to work with him, and his daughter is in the training program. She's in the field, right? And I network with her and coach her in the field. And I think it's just so cool. The credibility is from the top down, right? She's going through, the everything the same way that we all did, with no special treatment, that her dad is, partner in our company, because she needs to learn it the same exact way. So just confirming, rehashing, reiterating, I accredit probably 95% of my success to what I learned in the field. And then the rest of it is from my mentorship, right? And my coaches, but like my ability to problem solve, to, stay calm in like really difficult situations, right? Like you learn that in the field. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely got yelled at a couple times, and, to stay quiet and, keep going after that, right? Like teaches you so much. Your communication skills, period. Learning sales and how to communicate is what allows, it's how you learn how to talk to your team, how to run an impact, how to run a meeting. Like those communication skills are learned in the field, overcoming objections, your time management, right? Everything. To be good at the field, teaches you all the fundamental skills that you need to be successful, period, right? And whatever you kind of apply it into in life. So just rehashing that, because I'm very passionate about all the skills I learned in the field, because I started as a 22-year-old immature, negative girl, and I turned into a businesswoman because of that training program.
It's almost like, and before we get to the next question, the thing that really forces you to change is your habits. Like whatever habits you have coming in, like this forces you to have either get good habits or you're not going to make it. And so I didn't have the best habits. I had good habits, but there were some habits that weren't as good, and I had to adjust them, like going to bed at the same time every night. That was hard coming from bartending, waking up, being a great communicator with people. Some people in today's world, they don't respond to a text right away. They don't respond. It's like, those are habits that if you don't adjust in the business world, you won't make it. And so just like you said, Jess, this really forces you to fix your bad habits, and it highlights them. You know what I mean? Like it emphasizes anything that you're not great at. It will shine. And it's embarrassing sometimes, but at the end of the day, you need it. And that's ultimately what people end up doing, is they adjust themselves. They adapt with their personality to what they want to become, and they don't stay the same. And I think that's the beautiful part, is people really grow a lot, even in a short period of time.
For sure. Agreed. So my second question is, so, we're all leaders on this call. We go through the training program. We become a great version of ourselves because of it. So why would my manager then want to promote me into my own business versus me staying in his business and managing it because I became so good? Like why do we get to run our own business? How does it make sense for everyone?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple layers to this. And I think the first part of it is understanding how your owner's incentivized. The owner's incentivized to promote you out because we have an override system where when owners promote people out, they're getting an extra 25 to 30 grand in a bonus the next year for opening you up, right? It doesn't come from the owner. our suppliers and our clients are bonusing us for promoting people out. So when you see owners promoting people, that's because they understand that they're looking at the future and saying, hey, I don't want my income to be solely dependent on my sales in my office. And so when you hear these positions of regional and national, that's when owners really understand that they don't want to be running an office forever. They don't want to be solely dependent on that income forever. So they really focus on developing leaders that become owners, right? And I was telling you, Jess, yesterday that when I get into ownership, I kind of just looked at myself like I was a leader again, and I needed to build a team. Just the same way when you guys are saying, hey, I want to get promoted to management. Well, management for me was becoming an RC and an NC. So now as an owner, I wanted to build a team of leaders, build a team of owners. And the better I got at promoting them out and the better I got at mentoring them, the more of my income wouldn't be as dependent on how good my sales are that day or that year. So that's kind of the initial incentivization. And that's when you see, people like you, Jess, who get to work from home and your income is now no longer based on sales in your office. It's based on the people you mentor, right? So that's the initial reason why an owner's incentivized to promote someone out and not keep them in there. And plus, if we didn't promote people, then this would just be a sales job, right? And people that have came through our business, that they show up for the opportunity. Like if Alon said, hey, Van, this is just a sales job, I'd be like, no way, I'm not doing this as a job for my life. Like I'm not going business to business, I'm not going door to door. I'll be here because I see the bigger picture and I want to get there fast, right? So we recruit and retain such great people that come in with master's degrees, people that have owned businesses before, and then people that just have that PhD, that poor hunger determined, without necessarily the experience, but they look at this as their ticket. They're like, where am I going to get an opportunity like this where I can get ahead so fast based on my merit? And so we develop, and we are, as owners, the pressure's on us to provide an opportunity for people to recruit like crazy, to give the special people and the people that are working their butts off in the field a chance to build their teams to get promoted. So the whole business is really based on us opening up locations and the owner doing that. Now, some people aren't as aggressive at doing that. Some owners don't recruit like crazy and they don't give as many interviews or they don't send out as many. So it's a slower process for them. But you'll find the most successful ones are in terms of organizationally and income wise, they're the ones who are really urgent about promoting people, and they do whatever it takes to get their top person to the next level. The other aspect of it is from a client's perspective. So when we work with huge clients, there's a supply and demand nature to it, right? Where we have agreements based on how much money they give us, right? So if you look at a program like Verizon, if you rewind 8 or 9 years ago when the program first started, we were probably one of the lower paid vendors for Verizon. And through us opening up more locations, through us growing like crazy, we've now become the top paid vendor where we now are a huge portion of their sales. So by us opening up more offices, we have more leverage to the clients to get you guys, the owners, the reps, more profit, right? So when you look at all of our programs, we really do well compared to the competition. Some of them were number one by far. Some of them we're getting there, but by us performing and having a model that's incentivizing growth, we put ourselves in a great position to continue to go back to our clients and ask for more and get more. So you guys on this call, if you compare the office you're working in to any other direct sales company that has partnerships with these clients, you're probably getting paid double of what the other vendors would get paid. Not because your owner's nice, but because we have put this incentivization of growth in place, and we have created leverage to where we go to the client, we can ask for more because we do so much sales for them. So ultimately, we're incentivizing on both sides, right? We want to incentivize growth internally for the promotions, so that way you guys aren't stuck in the field and the owners aren't just running a sales office forever and ever and ever. But we're also doing it to understand that we need to support the client. And if we don't come through for the client, guys, the client's going to find somebody else, right? So we're always fear lost to make sure that we're the best of the best and we have the fastest growth and we're the best in compliance for the programs that we work on. So if you ever hear us saying, hey, we want to open up 50 offices, it's not like we're just saying that. We really do. And if you're on this call and you're up and coming leader, you should be looking at it saying, hey, how can I be involved in this? I want to grow too. I want to open up locations, because when you get promoted, it's going to be a good thing for you if you're contributing to the growth of the program that you're on. And we got tons of programs, so you're not tied to one, but that's sort of the initial why. And then I guess the last part, Jess, is it'd be really hard if Jessica or myself opened up 5 locations and we didn't incorporate and incentivize someone to run the business for themselves. So if I promoted Jess and I said, hey, Jess, you're just going to go be a manager in Los Angeles at one of my locations. I'll pay you a salary and I'll give you some bonuses. Well, she's like, well, so you told me I went in the field just so I could have a manager name tag and that's all I get. And she knows kind of what I'm making. So, and then on top of that, so we're not going to have the motivation of that office, that leader to build something for themselves, right? And then on top of that, for me to have to travel around and micromanage all these offices, that wouldn't lead to a lot of success. It's kind of the reason why it's harder for a bunch of location businesses not to individually franchise out, because one person trying to oversee tons of locations can be very, very difficult. So there's layers to it, but that's the sort of the reasons why we have this model of promoting you and giving you your shot. What you do with it, that's up to you, but we're really in the game of giving you your shot.
100%. And owning something is very different than managing something, right? Like you do it way better with way more when it's yours, right? So that model of opening 5 and having people manage it just becomes watered down, and we wouldn't get nearly close to the results that we get for our clients, right? And the only thing to add on the client side with the supply and demand, which I love the concept of, right? Because instead of based on like just the economy, it's based on us and our results, right? So the more we supply, the more we could demand, right? Like from the client, the more buying power that we have, and I'd say the only thing that a commercial has on us, as far as indirect marketing goes, is the exposure they get, right? Because they could broadcast to everyone. So the only way that we can close the gap on that benefit from commercials is opening more offices, right? Is getting that exposure in more cities. So like you said, again, with Verizon, when we had 5, offices, even if we were selling a lot, it's like, oh, we're here and we're doing all of this, we want more, right? You don't really have that much buying power. But now when you're like, hey, we're in 40 cities representing you, we're willing to go to another 40, and we're doing this much sales, we want more, that's when they, here you go, right? And just give more, right? Because of the exposure, because of the supply. And again, like Van said, we can't do that with just ourselves. We can't slice myself in 20 pieces and go run 20 offices. It doesn't work. That would be magic, right? So we need, leaders like yourselves to get into that position, to build those fundamental skills so you can run an office. And I hope you guys took a lot of notes on this one, because this is the most common question that parents ask me, about why I'm promoting their child into ownership, right? Or why, their kid is moving to another city, to go on an expansion crew. It's the most common question I get asked. They just don't get it. They're like, well, why would you put them into business? Like, I don't understand. So that's why we went over this question, so you guys can understand, right? Because we all win by putting you into business for yourself. It's a win-win across the board. So I hope you guys took notes.
One thing, Jess, too, like one of the things I forgot to mention, we can say we open up more offices and that's why the clients pay us more. Part of that's true, but the other part is their advertising dollars, their marketing dollars are just not getting the return on the investment they used to. So, we're becoming, and have been becoming the most consistent form of customer acquisition for them. This isn't a thing where, oh, we're so motivated and that's why they hire us because it's just this extra thing. That's how it used to be back when we started. Now, nobody watches commercials. No one sits there and looks at commercials. We all have subscriptions that we don't have commercials. So all these companies, if you look at the marketing dollars, even like a client like AT&T or Verizon, they're looking at their financials saying, God, what can we do with this money that's going to give a better return on it? Right? And they look at our business and they pay us per sale. It's a really genius model. They don't spend anything extra. They have some employees in our cities that help us with stuff, but it's very low cost for them and it's high return. It's just up to us to be compliant and to be consistent with these clients, because the world of marketing and advertising is so much different today than it was. And we really are such an asset to these clients, and we become a bigger asset by opening up more locations. If we stay small and we have 1 or 2 offices or 5 offices, they're not going to notice us as much, and it's still nice, but we really can impact their business by growing more and more and more. So it always comes back as well to that where marketing and advertising and customer acquisition is in today's world, because that's a humongous part of why we have this opportunity.
100%. So a lot of people go through, the training program, and, as they're in leadership, you ask, what are your goals? And they're like, I want management, I want ownership, right? So they say they want ownership, but what does ownership really mean to them, right? So part of my vetting process for leadership, in my office is, I ask your goals, and 99% of the time they say, I want to be in ownership, right? And I'm like, well, 5 years ago, you didn't even think about owning a business. Like, why all of a sudden do you want to own a business? What does ownership mean to you? And how somebody kind of answers that question, or kind of deep dives into it in their brain, like, what does it mean to me, determines, whether or not I promote them into leadership, or whether we need to do a little bit more work on, education. So in your opinion, Van, what is the benefit of being a business owner? Why did you want to own a business, right, when you were going through it? And why do you still want to own a business?
Well, I'll be honest, like when I was new, it was kind of intimidating to hear about owning a business. And one of the things when I first met Alon, I'm like, well, thank God I have this guy to teach me, because I feel like I would screw it up massively right away. So I didn't know how much I would enjoy it or like it until I kind of had it. And so it was like, I was kind of just excited about getting promoted to assistant management. Maybe people are different. Some people knew right away, oh, I want to own it. That word was scary to me. But it got less and less scary the better and better I got at the business. And especially when I was an assistant manager, and I was really like, I could run the whole business. I knew how to recruit. I knew the finances. I knew the budgeting. I knew how to drive leaders. I knew how to fix sales. And so as I got more confident, my skills improved. I remember one day I went into Alon's office and I went over my assistant management overrides. And I was like, hey, this week we did, this many sales, and I did this many sales. So I'll be getting a nice assistant management override. He's like, dude, great job. Keep up with the good work. So then I go back to my office and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, man, I'm getting a $1,200 bonus this week for my overrides, but the office made $8,000 in profit. So I'm just like, I think I want to be an owner. I think that's better. I mean, I'd rather do that. And so for me, it was a slower process of like getting it all really down. And I think a big part of it is confidence, and really understanding, when you own something, it's all on you and it starts with you. So what really attracted me was the ability to be the one who's in the driver's seat and can dictate whatever I want to happen, right? So if I'm excited and I'm on my game, good things will happen. And of course, the things that come with that to me were very attractive. I loved the freedom that I saw Alon have, where he's from Israel, so every year he visits his family for 2 or 3 weeks and he spends time, with people, and he built a business that could support it. And so I was thinking, man, that's a lifestyle thing that I like. I didn't want to be my mom, not necessarily because she's not great at what she does, but I didn't want to have a job for Wells Fargo where her freedom was limited in terms of when she could take time off. So for me, the freedom aspect of it was cool. The control was cool. And when you get confident at solving problems, you're not as afraid of if when your business has issues, because you've done it a million times in the field. So the benefits of it are great. I think like when you get into that position, I remember a long time ago, I asked Larry, what's the difference between certain owners? It really just comes down to your standards of how successful do you really want to be? And he said to me, listen, some people, when they get into ownership, some people want to be in the Hall of Fame. They want to be the best to ever do it. Other people, they're cool being an all-star, right? They're cool just kind of being on the all-star team. And then others are just happy to be a part of the team. And I remember when he said that, I was like, man, those are definitely different standards, right? And it's not in sports where it's like your athleticism and your speed kind of determine some of those things. It's all up here and it's all in here. So I looked at it like, well, why wouldn't you want to be in the Hall of Fame? And so I just thought about that. And so my goals when I came into it were, number one, on the program, try to become, a great owner, become great at promoting, have the biggest crew. And it doesn't always happen when you want it to. You go through these ups and downs, but ultimately, the concept of becoming as big as you want to become, to me, was awesome, because no matter what you do, if you go into the new year and you don't have an opportunity to grow, it can get old. I don't care if you're making 150 grand. As human beings, we naturally want to improve and take on more once we get good at stuff. So to me, that's been the most attractive thing, at this point, after many years of working hard. I still work hard, but I have way more freedoms than I had before. I can help my mom out. Financially, there's things I can do I couldn't do before. And so, I could go through that list, but ultimately it just kind of comes down to, you can be as big as you want. And the bigger you want to be, the harder you got to work, the more sacrifices you got to make, but the lanes on the freeway are there for you to decide.
Yeah. And what's cool is that you don't have to decide it now, right?
Exactly.
Like you could decide it as you go,
Yep.
each year. My first year in ownership, I had no idea if I wanted to do this. I actually didn't want to. I said, I don't want to be an owner.
Remember.
And Cardi kept telling me I'll be good at it. And I'm like, but I don't want to do this. I want to do finance. And I just believed him. I just believed that he thought I would be good. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll give it a shot, right? So 1 year I gave myself. I made a 1 year commitment to run an office. And at the end of the year, I was like, oh shit, I am good at this. I made a lot of money. I made 6 figures as a 23-year-old girl. And, then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to choose this. So now let me give it, 110%, right? And that's when I realized like this could be the vehicle to retire my mom. But it was after that 1 year commitment. And I think what sold me, not just the money I made, but true financial stability, like true stability. The fact that I was 23 and controlled my income, not just from my sales, but from my management potential, right? And my ability to coach people, is the definition of true financial and life kind of stability. Like it's just being in control of it. My mom worked so hard for 40 years for one company and then got laid off. So every time somebody comes into an interview with me and they say they want stability, I'm like, well, what does stability mean to you, right? Because they all think it means just the same paycheck every week, or 2 weeks paid vacation or whatever. Like none of that is stability, right? Like you can get laid off like that. We're again 40 years she worked for a company in the city, left at 7 a.m. every day, came home at 8 p.m. every single night for my whole childhood, and then she got laid off, right? So stability is working for yourself 100%. So even in ownership, when it got really, really hard and I wanted to quit many times, because that's a natural reaction, is to want to quit things when they're hard, I would think about, number one, the control and stability I have. And number two, I'm like, could I really work for someone else? And the answer is 100% no. Like once you run a business, like there's like no way you can go back and be an employee for somebody. Like ask, like, can I go take lunch now? Like I just can't even imagine it. Even in the field, you guys, you manage yourselves. We don't tell you when to break or when not. Like you manage yourself. So imagine now going to your next job and being like, excuse me, boss, or manager, can I go do this, please? So weird to me. So never turn back. But anyways, we go through the training program and we want to have all those benefits, right? We want to have stability. We want to have control. We want to have success in life. We want to have freedom, and unlimited goals, like you talked about, just with choice, period. So we graduate the program and we get our own office, we get our own market, we get our own client, and we're ready for ownership, right? What are the biggest factors of someone getting into ownership and not being able to capitalize on those benefits?
There's a couple things. I think that one of the main things that happens, because when people get into their own office, is that before they had someone above them that was kind of monitoring whether they were on their game, whether they're performing in the field, whether they're working with their guys. And now it's on you, right? So what we'll see is we don't know really how someone's going to respond when they're the one in charge completely, right? So our business, people ask me all the time, how come certain offices are way more successful than other offices? And at the end of the day, I can't work for someone, right? So I learned early on that, you gotta, when it's yours, you might as well work the hardest. You work so hard for somebody else to get your opportunity, but some people, they're lazy when they have it for themselves, which doesn't make sense to me. But that's the number one problem that, people face when they become the person who's running it, is they just don't have the same intensity and urgency and focus. And that to me is where it starts, right? When the owner loses that edge, they lose that fear of loss. They kind of think that now that they're running the business, that they're a hotshot, right? They think that the money tree in the office is going to start growing, and money leaves are going to fall off. And one day they're going to be a millionaire. It doesn't work that way, right? Just because you got a jersey and you're on the team, you got to perform, right? So I think the psychology going into it needs to be, I'm now officially in the game, right? I made it to the big leagues. You see players when they get drafted, sometimes they get that rookie contract and they don't really have the same urgency. Well, the rookie contract for some of you guys is maybe saving 10 or 15 grand when you first open up because your expenses are low. And then from there, it's up to you. So I would say that's the first thing. The second thing is ego. And when ego is involved, it's good for some of us because that's what makes us competitive. That's what makes us hungry. That's what makes us want to be successful. But when ego gets in the way of your ability to humble yourself and be a good student and reach out, that can really, stunt your growth. And I think that what I said in my advice to people is stay humble and stay studious. Don't lose your confidence, but you got to kind of stay grounded and remember where you came from. Because many people that become managers, a year before this, you were applying for an entry-level job. So I think perspective is what a lot of people lose when they get into that position, and they forget where they came from. They kind of start looking in the mirror and thinking, I don't have to work as hard anymore. I'm the owner. I don't have to get with my guys on team nights every week. I'm the owner. And then the other thing is they over delegate to the wrong people. So they have people in their office that aren't the example they would need. They aren't the business partner potentials that they would really need. And they over delegate to those people. They give too much responsibility to them, and their business is kind of dictated on whether or not that person ends up having the skill set to do it. And that kind of leaves them in the rut for a long time. And they're not constantly finding new talent and working with them the way that we were so desperate to when we were building our teams in the field. So my advice for anyone that gets to management is just look at it as your new field, right? That's your new chance to build your team. And if you have the same intensity and the work ethic and the student mentality you had going through the field, now you make the profit, right? Why wouldn't you not work as hard as you've ever worked? Because it's yours. It's yours. And so, yeah, I would say those are some of the pitfalls people go through. They don't work as hard. Their ego gets in the way. So they stop networking and they don't keep being a good student. And then they don't build new leaders. They continue to be dependent on people that have been in the business way too long, that really aren't the right ones to work with long term. And those cause people to not grow as much in the upper management ownership positions.
100%. I think there's definitely a misconception that when you get to, you get to management or ownership, and then you don't have to go in the field anymore, right? Like that's why people are want to get to ownership, is so they don't have to go in the field, right? Which is why I try and clarify that at the leadership level for people, because the misconception is that the field, is unattractive, right? Whereas I think hard work is extremely attractive. It's what attracts the right people, right? As long as you attach that hard work with big goals, right? There's a reason why we're doing it. So, the owners that understand, hey, I want to go out there and build people because it's my business. Why wouldn't I want to build people for my business? I just did it for, his business for a year. Now let me do it for mine until my time is more valuable not being in the field, right? When I have 20 guys and need to recruit, and I have 5 outside deals and need to consult, and that takes up all my field time, it doesn't make sense for me to go in the field anymore. But until then, why wouldn't I, right? Where that's what's generating the growth, for my business. So,
Yep.
100% agree with you, Dan. And the last question, and we have 5 minutes left, so we're probably not going to be able to take any questions, is then what? Right? So you're running an office, you do well, right? Or we don't do well, but then we fix it and we do well. What's next? What are the goals from there, both business and kind of personal?
Yeah, well, everybody's different. I think that the things you can do using the business as a vehicle are great. Everybody's going to have different goals for what's important to them in their life. Some people they want to, really buy a house and start a family, and they want to do that early, and they want to be able to have time to spend with their family. And I think, Jess, you're a great example of that, of you started having kids, and you looked at it and said, I want to be available for my children. I want to be available to be around and help them. And I'm sure when they're, your son, who's now 5, when he was first being, a little guy, you were like, I need to be urgency to build something so I can be available as he gets older. And so I think for many people, it's just identifying the things that are really important to you and putting in the time to give yourself time, right? And time's something that you'll find that successful people really take serious. And so there's like this urgency clock in their head when they first become an owner, and they're like, this is not forever, this is finite. So I got to kick as much ass as I can because I want to spend more of my life in the lifestyle that I want, right? I want to be available for my kids. I want to be available to see my folks or help my parents, or maybe some of you guys are really motivated by traveling and seeing different parts of the world. Well, the better you are with your time when you first get involved, the more time you'll have to enjoy, right? And so I would say time is really our greatest asset. And if you're smart with it, you'll have more of it that you can do what you want. But if you, and many of us go through phases where we waste time, right? And that's okay, because you guys heard, Nick Hearn on Friday, how he was spinning his wheels. He went on a retrain, and those 6 months, that changed his life, right? And so now he's in this position because he spent time really learning. So I would just say that the what's next is kind of whatever you want it to be. Some people are really into, hobbies and other things. And you guys have heard people that are involved in that. Other people, they get into our business and they're like, I want to put away X amount of money. And then I want to take that money and I want to do other things in my life. I want to invest in other businesses and I want to start something else. And so it's really up to you, whatever you want. But either way, when you get your shot, you really got to look at time and take it serious, because time will fly by. And I always, I've said this quote, the marketplace does not reward time served, right? This isn't jail. So just because you put in a bunch of time, it doesn't mean you're going to get this reward because you've been here a long time, right? There's many people who have gotten promoted way faster and are in way better positions than people who have been doing this a long time. So just because you spend time doesn't mean you're going to get more of the time you want later on. You got to be really intense about it. And the more, the more useful you are of your time now, the more of the time to be able to do the things you really want to do, spend time with your kids, be available for your parents, travel, buy nice things, whatever's important. I think you got to be smart with time. So that's what I would say is the next is whatever you want it to be.
That's awesome. The marketplace does not reward time served. I've never heard that, and it's going to be my new favorite quote. I will say that many, many times to people now.
Yep.
That was great. So we have 1 minute left. No time to take questions, huh? I think that was a great piece of advice. Actually, our question that we got is, what advice would you give that maybe we haven't heard, or that is not necessarily part of the business model that can be valuable in getting to the next level? I think that time advice was excellent.
Yeah. A lot of people get frustrated because, they think that loyalty is super important. Don't get me wrong. Like, loyalty is a big part of business relationships and going through hard times. And some of us, our learning curves are different. So it's going to take us more time to get good at stuff and to pick things up. But you can't use a bunch of time spent as your excuse to why aren't you ahead further. It's just way more about how useful you are with your time. So when I see owners that don't network, they don't reach out, they kind of stay in their little bubbles. It's always kind of the same trend where they just stay in the same spot. And then 3 years go by and one owner will have 10 owners or 15 owners and the other one will have 1 or 2. And it's more just about their urgency to spend the time wisely now so they can be in a better position later on.
I agree. Thank you so much, Van. It's 12 o'clock. I hope you guys all took a ton of notes, so you can, again, build and, create a better skill to communicate, to understand business and promoting from within and return on investments and why we do sales and, why, our model just works, period. And so you have more clarity and confidence, and you can attack things better, and you can grow faster, and you can retain better, and we all win from that. So again, thank you, Van, for sharing your insight and knowledge, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Tuesday.
Thanks, Jessica. Bye, everybody.